So you want to make cool stuff like this, don't you? Well, you came to the right place. Hey guys, Kira Swimmer here, and welcome back to another video where today I'm going to show you everything you need to know in order to make your very own super golf course. So the first thing you might be wondering is, how do I actually access the course creator? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click this blue button right here. Probably going to say play if you're on a private server. So you're going to go over to the Create tab, and then you're going to click Enter the Map Builder. This will teleport you to the Map Builder place in Super Golf. Once you arrive, you will see this menu right here. Now, if you've never made a map before, you will just see New Map on here. Although, if you've been following me, the CS Gauntlet is here. So you're going to click New Map. So here you can put in your project's name. You can change what photo your project uses later, and it can be set to any decal ID on Roblox. The color will affect what color your project's name tag is. So we'll make this like a nice, I don't know, purple. And then the icon here, you can choose from a wide list of icons to use for your map. The template here sets up the terrain, the lighting, and whatever first hole you're going to get. Now, you want to choose this carefully because your selection here will affect what hole you get first. Selecting none will put you in an empty lava pit area. Selecting any of the maps that are currently in Super Golf will make those maps for you, except there will not be any foliage outside of the first map. So for example, if we were to choose Grove as our template, it would create the general terrain of that map, but none of the extra decorations will be there. So we got a few different tabs here, which I'll split into different parts of the video. We got the Build tab and Build Tools, the Settings tab, which determines all the settings in your map, and also the Project tab. And if you're selecting a specific object, you will also see the Properties window. Let's start with the Project tab of the Settings tab. You will see everything about your project, including the map code, which you need to share with other people, the name, which will name this tutorial. Oh. What? Okay, so what happened is I accidentally pressed Shift and P and that enabled the cinematic camera. So be careful doing that. It will turn on the cinematic camera. So if you end up in the cinematic camera, just press Shift P and that should take you right out. The image ID is what ID it will pull from the Roblox marketplace to use as the image. It must be an image ID in order for it to work. The music is a set of music from not only Super Golf, but every single game that Nosny has published, which includes Rivals and Black Hole Simulator and Treasure Quest. You can take a listen to the music by clicking this button. Very nice. I'm going to turn it off before my video gets claimed. And the template, as we mentioned before, you can use to change the look of your map after you make it. Although be careful, because changing the template after you make the map will only change the terrain. Anything that came pre-generated your map will be there, and in many cases what used to be your map is going to be extremely far away from the actual terrain. And also the terrain colors from your previous map will be carried over to the next map, which is something you have to be aware of. So for the purposes of a lack of confusion, I'm going to go ahead and change the template back to Grove. Under the lighting tab, you can change anything that affects the lighting of your game. The time affects what time of day your map is. The sun rotation changes the orientation of the sun and moon in the sky, which can be used to create some really strange effects. If you change the sun rotation to a really strange number, so you can make it so that the sun is in the sky at night, which makes no sense. The brightness changes the overall brightness of your map. This is particularly noticeable during the day. The exposure will change the overall gamma of your map. Changing this to a really high value will cause all the objects in your map to become really reflective and really bright and really painful to look at. Whereas on the contrary, changing the exposure to a very low number will cause all the objects in your map to appear dark and dull. The ambient affects the overall lighting color on the map. For example, if I were to change it to blue, Grove would look very blue. If I set the pink, it would look pink. Yellow look yellow. You get the idea. The outdoor ambience affects the overall outdoor ambience of the map. For most maps, this is set to 128, 128, 128 by default, although you can use the color wheel to change it to any value you like. Now, I'm not really sure what bottom shift and top shift do as of now. If you have any idea, please let me know in the comment section. Now moving on to the effects tab. The skybox changes the skybox that is used. For example, if you were to change it to facility, you see we have the facility skybox, although it looks weird because you can't normally play facility during the night. Celestial bodies enables the visibility of the sun and the moon. The sun size and moon size do exactly what it says on the tin. You can make the moon monstrously big, and same thing for the sun. The atmosphere will add fog to your map. The density will affect how dense the fog is, although if you don't mess with some of the other settings, A density value that's really high can cause some really strange effects given certain lighting settings. The offset slider determines how much of the terrain is reflected off of the fog as you get really far away, which can make higher density values seem less jarring and less strange. I couldn't quite figure out what the glare slider did. Again, if you know in the comment section, please let me know. And the haze slider affects how much pollution is in the atmosphere, which can be useful for industrial or city-esque maps. The bloom effect is basically exposure, but in an effect. The intensity value determines how intense the bloom is. The size will determine the size of the bloom particles. And the threshold determines how reflective an object has to be in order to be bloomed. For example, turning the threshold slider up will mainly only allow neon parts to become reflective. The blur basically allows you to play Super Golf as awesome without her glasses. Depth of field is a more advanced version of blur, with the main difference being is that you can set a difference distance to actually be in focus, and any objects that are further away than that distance will appear blurry. Color correction basically allows you to toy with everything that I would toy with while making a thumbnail in your Super Golf map. You can change the brightness, you can change the contrast and the saturation to make the ultimate deep fried golfing experience. Another thing you can use this for is to make ancient Super Golf. By setting the saturation to exactly -1.25, you will make your Super Golf game completely in black and white. Although be warned, because turning the saturation value lower than this value will cause some really strange color effects. Yeah. And the tint does, well, it tints your game, depending on what you set the tint to. You can make your Super Golf map demonic. Alternatively, you can also drag this value slider down all the way to the bottom, and it is literally impossible to see anything. Sun rays affect the light that is emitted from the sun, which is particularly noticeable during sunset. If you look at this mountain right here, as I change the intensity, it determines how visible these sun rays are. The spread determines how concentrated the sun rays are. And clouds do, well, they make clouds for skyboxes that don't already have them. The difference between these clouds and skyboxes that have clouds built into them is these clouds move, which can be useful if you want your map to have a more realistic or authentic feel. Now let's move on to the terrain settings. Water shine determines how reflective the water is of the sky. A value of 0 will not reflect the sky at all, and a value of 1 will reflect it completely. The clarity determines how opaque the water is or how see-through it is. The water size determines the size of the waves in the water. And the water speed determines how fast those waves move. Each of these color buttons right here determine the color of each of the separate things. Grass affects the color of grass that has blades on it. Leafy grass determines the color of grass that does not have blades on it, which you see right here. Mud determines the color of the brown stuff that often surrounds leafy grass, although you can make it not brown if you so choose, and rock determines the color of the stone around the map. In the holes menu, you will find every single hole that you have created. You can change the par and the gold medal time of each hole to any value between 1 and 999. So you can either use this to allow your map to be really easy, or to make it so that you have to get a hole in one in order to be on par with the entire server. And finally, in the gameplay tab, you can determine the default settings that your map uses. In here, you can find just about everything that you would find in the admin menu, including wind condition, spawn position, and more. These will be the default values that your map will use, as in public servers, game mode voting is disabled on community maps. For example, if you want to make a map where you had to use 400 power in order to win, you can change the max shoot power to 400, and that will be the default for your map. And now that brings us on to the next part, which is the building part. If you open your build menu here, you have access to a wide array of all sorts of different things you can use to build your golf course. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through all of them because, of course, there's a lot, but I'll go through some of the most notable ones, and this tab will get its own section of the video. Under the course thing here, you can find just about everything you need to build golf courses, including flags, hockey nets, basketball hoops, ice, sand, and more. Certain blocks, for example, lava, will automatically respawn the player upon contact. Okay, that was a really strange effect. Now, for this next demonstration, I will try and fix the damage I've caused to the end of this hole here. So I'm going to grab in my finish hole piece. Now, in order to move it in position correctly, I'm going to use these set of tools up here, which include the move tool, the resize tool, and the rotate tool. Now, the move tool is what I'll mainly be using because you can press R to rotate a part exactly 90 degrees, and T to tilt it in any direction you like. The rotate tool can be used for more precise rotation if you need it. And the resize tool is a lot more seldom used, but it can be used to either make a part bigger or smaller, which for coarse pieces causes the texture to go really funny. And you can also press Ctrl Z or Command Z if you're on a Mac to undo any changes you have made. When using the move tool, you can use the arrows to drag them in whatever direction you like, and once you got it in the place you want, you can go ahead and change the colors to match up with the rest of the map here, which you find right down here in the properties window, which I talked about earlier. You can do all sorts of options such as turning off collisions to shadow and also changing where in the course this part is. If I were to change this to out of bounds, for example, and I were to play test it, since the end part is now out of bounds, if I happen to land on it, the game will think that I am no longer on hole 1 and will teleport me back to where I once were, which could have some devious applications. But for our purposes here, we're going to be messing with the color. This is right here is what is known as a hex code, and it is what determines what color a part is. If you want to take this hex code and copy it from one part to another, you just go here, press Ctrl C if you're on Windows or Command C if you're on a Mac, and then go here and press either Ctrl C or Command C depending on what device you are on. Now go ahead and do the same with the other color as well to make it so that this finished part matches up with all the other parts. Now if you're building a course, and let's say we want to add another hill here, you can use Control or Command D to duplicate a part, which is what I'm going to demonstrate right here. And you can also either press the backspace button, the delete button, or Control X to delete a part. An important thing to note is that using Control D to duplicate a part will copy not only the part but also all of its color properties as well, which is nice if you don't want to have to constantly copy colors onto a bunch of course parts. But one thing I recommend doing is building the general structure of your course first and then copying all the colors on later, unless you have a bunch of course parts that are just the same, like if you have a bunch of straight pieces, a bunch of fake holes, and you can duplicate that so that you don't have to change the color as much. Whenever you make a new part, whatever you have selected in your project is what you will add to. For example, if I select out of bounds and I go ahead and add in a new palm tree, that palm tree will be out of bounds, meaning that if you somehow manage to land on top of this, you will be respawned. Although, if I change it to hole 1, if you manage to land on top of this palm tree and stay there, the game will not respawn you. If I ever wanted to make a new hole, I would click new hole right here, and that will give us our new hole. And we'll make our first start piece right here. One thing each hole will also need is a spawn part, a finished part, and a camera part. The spawn part defines the entire area where golf balls can spawn. If spawn is set to center, then the golf ball will spawn smack in the center of this part. If it is set to random spawning, then it can spawn anywhere inside of this part, and slightly random will restrict that slightly. The finished part is the part that if your golf ball touches it, it will be considered in the hole and you win. I would recommend using the resize tool in order to make sure this covers the entire surface area of the hole. In certain holes such as hole 18 Atlantis, this part actually covers quite a large area, as you would be shooting in a place such as a treasure chest, which is much more of a broad area. The camera part determines what the camera will be looking at when this hole is being played in the menu. To make it your life a lot easier placing a camera part, look in the direction of the view that you want the players to have that are in the menu, and then click the camera part, and it will make your camera part right where you are looking. And just like that, I have a completely functional hole in Super Golf. But what if I told you that there's more? So Super Golf has all these advanced parts that have quite a lot of applications. So I'm going to go through every single one of them. The respawn part will force your player to respawn if you touch it. The jump part allows your player to jump a predetermined distance in the air that can be changed in the properties window. The boost part boosts the player in the direction that they are facing by a set multiplier, which can be changed in the properties window. The explosive part, it does, well, the anti-gravity part allows your golf ball to completely disregard Isaac Newton's laws of physics for an amount of time that could be determined in the properties window. The magnet part pulls any golf balls that are inside of it towards its center or pushes it away, depending on if the strength value is set to a positive or negative number. In jumping mode, the replenish part will instantly refill any jumps that the player has used. The wind part will affect every single golf ball that is inside of it with wind, which the strength can be changed in the properties window. The wind will be portrayed by these white lines, which will change in speed depending on the strength. The cheer part plays a classic cheer whenever the player rolls over it. In the name property, you can use any cheer in the game and it will play it. The text box displays whatever text you want it to display, and you can change in the text value of the properties window. That seems good. The icon part is very similar to the text part, except it displays any of the icons that you can select while making your map. The image part is like the two aforementioned parts, except you can use it to display any image on the Roblox marketplace. Just paste in the image ID right here. Yeah, it's safe to say I still don't know how this part works. I think the more part deserves its own video, so yeah, until then. The light part is an invisible part that emits light, which can be useful in particularly dark levels or if you're trying to make a horror level. The properties that can be changed are, can you go away, shop update? I don't think anyone cares, I'm trying to make a video here. A point light emits the light in a sphere around where the block is. Spotlight works just like how a spotlight would in real life. And the surface light makes just the surface emissive. The brightness and range affect how powerful and how far the light goes, and with either spot or surface, the angle affects the radius at which the light is emitted. The camera collision part acts as a great big invisible wall that not even the camera can pass through. For example, if I make this big wall right here and I hit play, the camera cannot go through this, and neither can the golf ball. Now the invisible part is very similar to the camera collision part, with the main difference being that the camera can still go through it, but the golf ball can't. And that should do it for all of the advanced blocks. So that's pretty much everything you need to know in order to get started with the level editor. If I miss anything, be sure to let me know in the comment section, and also make sure to leave a like and subscribe. This is quite difficult for me to make this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.